Super Bowl week is finally upon us. Do Joe Burrow and the Bengals have any chance at upsetting Matthew Stafford and the Rams? Yep. Hey, Russ was relegated to bench for the Lakers' overtime win Saturday. Bench. Call LA. Can LA overcome Westbrook's struggles the rest of the way now? We will discuss what's in line for them and Mac Jones doing literally everything at the Pro Bowl. All of it, Nick. Take it all in, buddy. Take it in. Good Monday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Nick is so amused. He loved what happened. Nick, Broussard, Gordon, Wild Wells, put a grade. Put a grade on that for us right now. Go ahead, do it.
Wow,
he put a grade on it?
Oh,
you love it.
I didn't know you go to dance that well.
The hooves.
Got the hooves are moving around. Oh, A+.
You couldn't stop tweeting
Me
it.
put a grade
it was all
on it?
over Instagram. Maybe you put a grade on it.
Buddy,
I'll put a grade on it.
You're the reason we're talking about it.
That was smooth. So let's make it even smoother. Talking some James Harden this morning, who has reportedly been unhappy with his time in Brooklyn. The Athletic reported the Sixers were working on a Harden for Ben Simmons swap, but Steve Nash said Harden isn't going anywhere. A new report from ESPN this morning after Harden missed the last 2 games with a hamstring injury had this: Brooklyn is trusting the injury is a legitimate hindrance to Harden playing now. An MRI Saturday confirmed there was tightness. The way they're trusting his word that he wants to remain with the franchise, sources say. Even so, saying he's committed isn't nearly as convincing as showing it. And that's something Harden has barely done lately. At times this year, Harden has played dispassionate and disappointing basketball, perhaps injury-related in some instances, perhaps pouty in others. By the way, guys, Nets have lost their 7th and 8th straight over the weekend. This was a team, remember, they were in first place on Christmas. Guess where they are now? 7th place. All right, Broussard, I'll start with you. Should the Nets trade James Harden before Thursday's trade deadline?
Look, everything you read, Jenna, from that article, that's all true. But no, they should not trade James Harden. Certainly not for Ben Simmons. Because the best, as bad as the Nets look, and that's from the morale being low, the chemistry being poor, the execution being faulty, their best chance to win a championship this season is with James Harden, not with Ben Simmons. If you trade for Ben Simmons, you're punting on this season because you have no chance of winning a championship with him this year. You have no idea what you're getting if you trade for a Ben Simmons package. Is he going to be mentally ready to play? Will he take jump shots? Heck, will he take layups? What will happen to him if you have a playoff series with the Philadelphia 76ers? How will he fit chemistry-wise on the floor and in the locker room with your players? And when you play home games and Kyrie Irving can't play, you're down to one legitimate scorer in Kevin Durant. So as bad as things seem, and they are bad right now, your best chance still to salvage this season and win a championship is with James Harden. So if I'm the Nets, Nick, I keep him. I play this thing out. I'm not saying it looks great and that they're definitely going to win it, but that's a better chance than trade for Simmons. They can get the Simmons package in the summer. All right, if they want to trade for Ben Simmons, play this season out,
this year.
Get him. Fine.
That's fun.
Fine, but trade. You can trade for Ben Simmons. You can trade for Ben Simmons. And maybe, where's Harden going in the future?
Yeah.
And as a free agent,
Orlando,
Oklahoma City, San Antonio.
Yeah, but who's to say that's the trade Philly wants?
Wait, is he going to any of those teams?
No, buddy, you're looking at it wrong. Like everyone, Daryl Morey. You know, I just trade Harden trade Simmons before the year. Just get it over with. What's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you what's happening. Does it look like Dame is dead set in Portland? Does it look like Bradley Beal is dead set in Washington? And now all of a sudden, does it look like James Harden is dead set in Brooklyn? Nope, nope, nope. And if you're any of those teams, who's the first phone call you're making? Who's the only team with a 25-year-old under contract for 4 more years that has a couple All-NBA teams under his belt? The Sixers. Yeah. So this idea that, you can get Ben Simmons any point in time, I don't know that to be true. Because I think this very moment, Philly is likely having conversations with Washington about what is the status on Bradley Beal. The Dame thing's complicated because I don't know that anyone knows the full severity of his injury. But I vehemently disagree with Broussard, Wilds. I think this trade is the only chance Brooklyn has at winning the East this year.
Please.
You've got... listen, at some point, the Nets have to stop being an NFT and they have to start being a basketball team. At some point,
trade for Ben Simmons?
Idea of... at some point, you have to recognize and acknowledge this team. The answer is, right now, the team they have stinks. Right now, KD, Harden, Kyrie, never been together. There's no reason to believe it's going to work. And before, Wilds, we were on the air Friday, shortly before the report dropped that Harden could be traded this year. And what were we talking about? James Harden has gone full Tom Tupa on the Nets. He's punting it. Nope, not interested. He had just come off a 4-point game against the Kings, and now all of a sudden, he is quite conspicuously missing games with the hammy.
There's tightness.
And they even put in the article, they're
tightness.
taking him at his word. When you have to put in the article, they're taking him at his word.
That's true.
That means, we don't know. And so this idea that the Nets have any chance of winning a title with a bench that doesn't exist, with a top 3 player in the world who, God love him, right now is dealing with another injury, with the most mercurial, not even superstar, but star in sports, Kyrie Irving.
Come on.
And James Harden, who's 18 pounds overweight and 18 days removed from last caring about the Nets. It's not a good recipe.
It's unbelievable.
And so the idea that Ben Simmons plus Seth Curry or Ben Simmons plus one of the other, because you have to add another piece to make the money work, doesn't make them better. I think it's nuts, Wilds. I think this is a move the Nets absolutely should make.
No, I don't think they go. I don't think they make this move, Broussard. I think that Steve Nash needs to have a full-on press conference in Barclays and say something very simple. We are 13-3 when all 3 of our big 3 play. We are still favored to win the NBA championship. We're not like the Lakers who have fallen way behind the Heat. We're still favored to win. All we need to do is be 100% in. James, are you 100% in? If you don't want to be traded to Philly, yes. Kyrie, are you 100% in? Yeah, half the time. Okay. KD, are you 100% in? When you're not trying to relitigate your Warriors exit? Stop. What is Babe Ruth to the Yankees? Like, stop. We've talked too much about this. Fans, are you 100% in? Yes, except when you're chanting MVP for John Steph. But if all of those things could be smoothed over, Broussard, the Nets are still the best basketball team. They're 13-3 when the big 3
That's
play,
such nonsense.
and they're still favored to win. I wouldn't make a move. I wouldn't make a move. They just need to get focused and get everybody on the court. Can it happen? I don't know. But when it does happen, it works. You're saying it doesn't work even when they're playing, Nick.
Right. All I'm saying, Nick, is their best chance is with Harden rather than trading for Ben Simmons. And
here's correct.
Here's the thing with Simmons in the summer. I do think they could get him. You're right. Dame may be available. Bradley Beal could be available. They could trade him somewhere else. But if James Harden wants to leave the Nets, he's not going to any of the teams that have cap room.
I agree
because all
with that.
those teams stink. And so if you don't get Ben Simmons for Harden, you're going to get somebody else good. And you're going to get another good package for Harden. Or he's going to have to stay and decide wants to play for you because he can't go elsewhere. So there's that. And there's also this, Nick. Wiles brought up the 13-3 record. They're 2-0 since Kyrie came back when the big 3 played. I get it, small sample size. But that 6-12 record since Kyrie has started playing, yes, the chemistry is bad, and it looks like Harden's morale is gone. But also injuries are a factor. Durant's missed 12 of those games.
Luckily, those won't apply in the playoffs.
Nick Claxton and LaMarcus Aldridge have missed 9 games each in that stint. Joe Harris has missed all the games, and Harden has missed 5 of them. So injuries, you can't discount injuries in this either, Nick.
No,
it's not
true.
just, Kyrie stepped on the court, now they stink.
No. And luckily, once the playoffs start, you go to the NBA 2K settings and you toggle injuries off, so they won't have to worry about those at all. When we're talking about potential Harden trades, do you think they'd maybe be able to call do you think they could get like a Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, and 7 future firsts? Like, is that too much?
Thought about that. That'd be nice.
Because if they could toggle, undo. Here's an interesting question. I know we don't have time for it. Just mull it over the next hour. If they could undo the Harden trade, would they? The answer is obviously yes, which is why the answer is they should trade him. If they could undo it, get all their picks back, get nice role players, then they would obviously undo it. Okay.
I don't think that's obviously yes.
I wonder if Harden feels that way. By the way, we have a couple more days to talk about this trade deadline, not till this Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Much more on that still to come. Much more on this still to come as well. Super Bowl 56. Rams are the favorites, but do Burrow and the Bengals have any chance whatsoever? We break this down next. First things first. Super Bowl 56 right around the corner. Matchup between the Rams and Bengals, between quarterbacks Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow. First time on football's biggest stage for either of these two former number 1 overall picks. Stafford, by the way, turns 34 today. Happy birthday, Matthew Stafford. Fox Bet has Stafford's Rams favored by 4.5 points Sunday at SoFi. Nice little birthday gift to you, buddy. Nick, all signs across the board pointing to the Rams in this one. You expecting a blowout Sunday in Super Bowl 56?
I think the Rams should be able to handle them with relative ease, but that is not necessarily bad news for Bengals fans, because here's the deal. There have been 12 playoff games so far this postseason, Broussard. When I do the picks against the spread, I'm 8-4 picking those games.
Yeah.
8-1 in non-Bengals games. 0-3 in Bengals games. I've picked against them against the spread every single time, and every single time they've covered. So I am maybe not the best barometer on how good the Bengals are. I will admit that on the front end. I've been locked in on everything except for the Bengals.
It's pronounced.
With that said, Brew, I don't see how I don't see one clear-cut advantage the Bengals have. Not one. Against most teams, it is, Jamar Chase. I don't know about against Jalen Ramsey. Certainly, I don't think the Bengals defense matches up well against the Rams offense in any phase, unless Sean McVay idiotically decides to just try to pound the run. If they go to the quick passing game followed by the deep passing game, I don't think the Bengals can keep up with them there. And the advantage that you saw the Titans the way they were able to take advantage of the Bengals offensive line, the way the Chiefs weren't in truly pathetic fashion in the second half, I expect the Rams to be able to do in triplicate with Von Miller, with Leonard Floyd, and most importantly, right up the middle, Aaron Donald. I think Joe Burrow is going to be under massive duress. I still don't think Zach Taylor's a very good coach. Sorry, Zach, I know you're in a Super Bowl. Happy for you, buddy. Don't think he's a very good coach. And I think the Rams are far and away the better team. I think 4.5 is too small of a number.
Wow. All right, look, I'm with you in that I'm leaning toward the Rams. We'll make our official picks, I guess, later in the week. But I'm leaning Rams for sure. And it's because of what you said, the offensive line for Cincinnati. The way they held off the Chiefs to hold them just to 1 sack, I don't think they'll be able to do that against the Rams. So like you said, Burrow will be under duress. But he showed against Kansas City that he can escape the pass rush. But I think that's a big advantage for the Rams. You mentioned they have an advantage just about everywhere. Well, we could have said the same thing about the Chiefs. And they beaten them twice in like the last month. So I think, yes, I'm leaning Rams, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. And I do give Cincinnati a chance to win this game for sure. I don't know why we wouldn't. With all the Bengals have done over the last 2 months, they've beaten the number 1 and number 2 seeds in the AFC, the tougher conference, we believe, on the road. All right, they've won 6 straight games, their last 6, in which they've played their starters, and all of those teams were solid teams, even the ones, Denver and Baltimore, that didn't even make the playoffs. So they're playing great football. And the Rams, they aren't world beaters yet, okay? They beat an Arizona team that was absolutely lost and floundering. They edged a Tampa team, held off a Tampa Bay team that was banged up. And then they beat a San Francisco team that, Nick, you think has one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, and they edged them. So Matt Stafford, just like Joe Burrow, I know he's got the experience, but he's also making his first Super Bowl appearance. We've seen him lose it, and throw too many interceptions. So, Wiles, I'm leaning Cincinnati, but I definitely don't think this is a mismatch. And I give Cincinnati.
No, he's leaning the Rams.
I'm leaning Rams.
You're leaning
Rams.
Give the
Bengals.
Okay.
I give the Bengals a chance to win this game for sure.
Well, I'm surprised you're turning your back on your hometown Bengals, Broussard. Yeah, you haven't done that a lot. You never turned your back on your hometown Saints or your hometown Colts that we learned.
I got a lot of hometowns.
Last week. Well, we know it's a lot of favorites, a lot of betrayals.
He's in LA right now.
Broussard, I want to get your
Rams.
reaction to this NFL meme I saw this weekend. I said, you know what? This is actually the dominant storyline going into the Super Bowls. And it's silly, obviously, but it's also not entirely wrong. But here's why I'm worried about Joe Burrow for all of his star power. He was sacked 51 times this year, led the entire NFL in sacks taken. When they're in the Super Bowl, a 2-sack differential can decide the game. It's 25-5. I think this game is going to feel a lot more like Rams-Cardinals than it does Bengals-Chiefs, because the Chiefs couldn't get a lot of pressure on Burrow, and when they did, he kind of high-stepped out of there. Do you think that the Burrow factor, Broussard, the idea that he's not just like cool smoking cigars, that there is actually, and I hate to say it because I usually only reserve this for one player in the NFL, that there is a Tom Brady type of mindset to Joe Burrow where he doesn't get flustered. He's going to go in and treat it like another game and be able to overcome all of the Rams' advantages.
I do. I think there are some similarities with Brady in terms of mindset. Tom Brady, as a 6th-round pick, had no problem stepping in and taking the job from Drew Bledsoe, who was the NFL's first $100 million man. Okay, so Tom Brady was like wise or poised beyond his years and beyond his accomplishments. And Joe Burrow is the same exact way. We remember just a couple years ago, everybody was saying, don't go to Cincinnati. No matter what you do, don't go to the Bengals. He had no problem going there, and here they are 2 years later in the Super Bowl. So, Nick, I don't think this is a cliche. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. He's too young to be intimidated and all that. But it's true. I'm not saying Burrow's going to throw for 400 yards, but I don't think the moment's going to be too big. I think he's going to go out there and feel like he belongs. And if he gets the time to throw, I think he's going to play a good game and give them a chance to win.
So, listen, this is not an anti-Joe Burrow take, and we'll talk about it throughout the week. If the Bengals win the Super Bowl, then Joe Burrow will have a legitimate claim that he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, he's going to be able to make that case. No, he will. Like, if they win the Super Bowl, and it's like, hey, I've played Mahomes twice, I've beat him both times, I've started one healthy season, I won the Super Bowl. My healthy year in college, last year in college, no one beat us. We had the best offense ever. Like, that is at least a legitimate case to be made. So I'm not trying to disrespect Burrow here. What I am saying is, if you were we all agree the Bengals' strength is their offense versus their defense. Even if we've slightly underrated their defense, their strength is the offensive side of the ball. What if you were to say, all right, who is the one player in the league best poised to slow down Jamar Chase? That player plays for the Rams. And if you were to say who is currently the one pass rush in the league you least want to go up against with your Swiss cheese offensive line, that pass rush is for the Rams. And so I think this is just a brutal matchup where the Rams defense can take advantage of what the Bengals' biggest weakness is and can somewhat, not totally, somewhat neutralize what is the Bengals' biggest offensive edge, which is Chase or Higgins, their passing game as a whole, I think there's a chance, Jenna, that they use Ramsey, that they end up saying, you know what, we're just going to double Chase the whole time without Ramsey, put Ramsey one-on-one on your number 2, and in that regard, take away both of your best passing options. Yeah, your tight end got hurt against the Chiefs in Uzoma, so he's likely not going to play. Like, all of that, to me, it's a really uphill climb. I think the fair number on this is 7.5, not 4.5. I'd be very impressed if they could keep it to one score.
We keep doubting the Bengals, and what do? They keep showing up and proving everybody wrong. So who knows?
Breaking my
heart.
heart.
Be closer than we
I
think.
would have thought you learned your lesson.
Yeah, exactly. He just finally got his heart back, too. We're moving on, talking some Russell Wilson. Could he take his talents to Tampa, replace Tom Brady this offseason? Tell you why we're asking next. First things first. All right, time to run the no huddle here. First things first. Russell Wilson took part in the Pro Bowl over the weekend. We may not know what his future in Seattle holds, but we do know what his connection with Mike Evans looks like, and in a word, good. Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times watched the two at Pro Bowl practice over the weekend, tweeted this: the Russ-Evans combo would make for an interesting fall in Tampa Bay. Oh, yes, it would. Yes, it would. Broussard, would you want to see Russ follow Tom Brady with the Bucs?
Well, look, Jenna, I'm on the record as saying Seattle should not trade Russell Wilson. I just don't think you trade a Hall of Fame quarterback who's smack dab in the middle of his prime. If he has a problem with the coach or they can't get along, buy Pete Carroll, but I'm keeping Russell Wilson. That said, it would be awesome for the league in terms of drama, in terms of storylines, in terms of excitement, sensation. Yeah, I would love to see Russell Wilson in Tampa Bay. I think it'd be a great situation for the Buccaneers. Russell Wilson with no risk it, no biscuit, Bruce Arians. Oh my God, yes. Arians would let Russ cook. I think Tampa Bay with Russell Wilson, Nick, would be right back near the top of the NFC and in contention to get back to a Super Bowl. So yeah, I would love it if this happened just from a fan's perspective.
I thought one of the reasons Brady left was because the Bucs aren't contenders anymore. Because the Bucs weren't going to be as good. Russell Wilson's not as good as Brady. So adding him, how does that work? I thought everyone agreed, well, Tampa's just not good enough. I didn't totally understand that, but it seemed to be the consensus. Brady's one of the reasons he's walking away is doesn't want to go 9-8 next year. Well, Russell Wilson is right now worse than Brady was this past year. Has been worse than Brady the last few years. So that's going to make them instant contenders. And here's the thing. Richard Sherman alluded to it. He's not necessarily wrong. Letting Russ cook has been a recipe for a lot of things. None of them taste great. Like the idea, no risk it, no biscuit with Russell Wilson. Are we sure that works? Are we sure that Russell Wilson is the exact caliber of quarterback that I know his brand demands that he be? Now, is he better than Kyle Trask, who's currently going to be the Bucs quarterback? Yes, of course. Would I trade for him as long as it's not 3 firsts and 3 seconds, something outrageous? Sure. But it would not all of a sudden make me believe, Wilds, that the Bucs are contenders. I think the Bucs, and I'm surprised Broussard doesn't feel the same way, if they're going to go after someone else who has never won an MVP and never will win an MVP, why not dark horse MVP Jameis Winston? A little homecoming. Come on back down to Tampa, Jameis. You got the interceptions out of your system. You don't have to trade for him. He's a free agent. I would assume he still owns property down there.
He knows the area.
So if the Bucs are looking for something, maybe a nice little Jameis reunion makes more sense, Wilds.
No, Russ is the answer. And if you can run back Broussard's whole take, you could see his excitement level for himself talking him into it. He's like, I think you do not trade a Super Bowl caliber quarterback like Russell Wilson from Seattle. But wouldn't it be exciting? And wouldn't you have the weapons and the offensive line and Bruce Arians and all of a sudden you were there, Broussard. So I am with you. I think this would be great. My one worry, and I'll throw this back to you, Broussard, since you so desperately want Russell Wilson to Tampa Bay. Do you think following in Brady's footsteps, is something that makes Tampa not an interesting destination for another great quarterback, so that if you don't get to the Super Bowl or that you just feel like you're playing really second fiddle to Brady's legacy, would that scare you off if you were Russell Wilson?
Look, I hear what you're saying, but here's the thing, Wiles. There's no shame if you can't fill Tom Brady's shoes. It really isn't, right? I mean, nobody's been able to walk in his footsteps. So if you can't do what Tom Brady did, I don't think anybody holds that against you. So, no. Russ, again, Seattle should keep him, but if they trade him, Tampa's not a bad place.
All right, speaking of NFC West quarterbacks potentially on the move, Jimmy G grappled to reporters last week his reps in the Niners are working on a trade. One possible suitor in need of a quarterback, the Steelers. The reported asking price for Pittsburgh, either a second-round pick or a third-rounder, and a player. Nick, would Jimmy G be the perfect successor to Big Ben?
Well, perfect is too strong of a word, but this is, if I were Jimmy G, his agent, his manager, or his stylist, I would want him in Pittsburgh. What we know is Jimmy G desperately needs to be on a team where he can be not the lead actor, not a supporting actor, but one of those tertiary characters, like Adrian Brody in the last season of Succession. Like, oh, he popped up for a moment, never to be seen again. That's what you need to be if you're Jimmy G. You need to have all these other folks around you that are going to carry the dialogue, carry the plot points, and you can occasionally be the handsome guy in the background. So Pittsburgh is perfect. He can do all those things. Mike Tomlin will handle the press conferences. You've got, I think, very good wide receivers there. Obviously a great defense. And you've got, to me, an organization similar to, he's only been with great organizations. New England is a great organization. San Francisco's a historically great organization. I've had a few down times, but not many. And the Steelers are maybe the greatest organization as far as never being awful, continued continuity and success. So all of that helps him. So yeah, I think it'd be perfect for Jimmy G. And I think for the Steelers, it is slim pickings when it comes to quarterbacks. So I don't hate it. I also love the whole, all right, so what would you give us for Jimmy G? Well, I don't know. What do you want? We'd like a second round pick, but we'll take a third and a player. Just please make the player someone people know their name, like a third. Like, make it look better. Make it look better that we're getting something for this guy, because we know he stinks. You know he stinks. But yeah, so I think it'd be a perfect fit for all involved. I want to see him in Carolina, though, so he can do what you say he can do, carry a franchise. Winner, winner, winner. So I'd like to see him in Carolina.
First of all, my wife and I just started watching Succession, so thanks for ruining it, Nick, for us. Don't worry, I didn't ruin it. Okay. But anyway, look, this might surprise people. Knowing how much I respect what Jimmy G did in San Francisco, perfect is way too strong. I'm going to look at it from the Steelers' perspective. Nick, you hit it from Jimmy G's perspective. It's a great fit for him. For the Steelers, I mean, again, I'll throw out the names: Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. Like, those are perfect fits. If I'm Pittsburgh, Jimmy G is like, if I can't get those guys, okay, I'll take Jimmy G, because as you said, he can manage the game. You've got a great running back in Najee Harris. You got good receivers, a defense, a strong coach, nice culture. All of that helps him. And here's the thing I love, Wilds. Jimmy G's just got 1 year left on his deal. So if I'm the Steelers, it's a prove-it year, right? Like, go out, let's see what he does. And, then 2023, we'll see what else is out there. Because, Nick, again, as much as I respect Jimmy G, I understand
you love him.
He's not elite.
Favorite.
And if I've got Jimmy G as my quarterback,
elite,
because of injuries and just the ceiling on him, I'm still probably looking for an upgrade. So Wilds, I like it because,
you showed me that graphic.
I'll take him for 1 year.
Top 8 winning percentage ever.
Prove to us that you can stay healthy and win. So yeah, it's a good fit if they can't get one of the big three.
I know, but according to that graphic, unless you're going to have Roger Staubach out there in his prime, there is very few people to upgrade
That's
over
just the fact.
Broussard.
That was just the fact. That's all.
Jenna, I think the 49ers should basically gift Jimmy G to the Steelers. Lose the second round pick. Bill Belichick gifted Jimmy G to the 49ers for a second-round pick. Now you should follow Trade Karma and gift Jimmy G to the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. So you know what, Mike Tomlin? All you do is win. All this guy does is win. For a third-round pick, because we were gifted him, we will gift him to you. It's just good karma for everybody to pass winning along.
It's like a white elephant thing. Nobody actually wants him. Just pass him around. It's like, who wants
Tremendous chance. Tremendous
perfect
chance
fit.
that doesn't happen. Nick's going to hand out some NBA medals now. Knicks Lakers. LeBron made his return Saturday night. He had 29, 13, and 10. Did what Kings do. Lakers found themselves down 20 to the Knicks. They had to come back, beat them in overtime. So no medal to bring home from a very busy weekend in the association. Nick, which three guys had podium-worthy performances?
Unbelievable weekend. LeBron also really had 31. Got screwed on a replay review in overtime. That wasn't offensive interference. However, before we reveal the medalists, because listen, I have been hearing it. And I understand there is a center out there that had a monster game and a win, who actually is in better shape than he used to be in, who his fans feel like he's being snubbed. He didn't make it today, but to Jarrett Allen fans, I apologize. The 20 and 20 game was phenomenal. Bronze medal, DeMar DeRozan. Come on down. Oh, it's hard to get a medal in a loss, but it's not impossible. 45, 9, and 7. But in a loss, that's why he is relegated to the bronze on the podium. Silver medal, same game. Joel Embiid. Is he going to win league MVP? Someone was talking about that months ago. He's now the Vegas favorite. Joel Embiid, 40 and 10. However, if he doesn't win league MVP, look who's lurking. Look who's coming up. Gold medalist. Oh, you know what they always say? Nothing's more dangerous than an in-shape Slovenian young man. Luka Doncic, 33, 13, and 15. One of 2 triple-doubles this weekend. Oh, nobody says it, Wilds. Plenty of people say it. You ask your wife about the streets of Slovenia. I know she was there recently. There it is. Luka coming on strong for the surging Mavs, Wilds. There it is, your medal stand from a great weekend in the NBA.
Not for that.
All right, LeBron just missing out on one of Nick's medals. We are talking his Lakers, though, because Russ was benched again Saturday night. Can LA overcome Westbrook's struggles? We dive into that next. First things first. Lakers now, who hosted the Knicks Saturday night, they got LeBron James back. He'd missed 5 games due to injury. King looked good in his return, 29, 13, and 10. But LA dug themselves out of a 21-point first-half hole that I mentioned they were playing the Knicks. They did get to overtime. They did get the win, but it certainly wasn't because of Russell Westbrook. Frank Vogel benched him overtime after Russ shot 1 of 10 on the night, turned it over a team-high 4 times as well, just not going to cut it. Second time Vogel's had to sit him down. Broussard, I'll start with you. What was the bigger story here? LeBron's triple-double in his return or Russ's struggles?
All right, Jenna, look, let me start with this. I don't think Russ being benched is as big of a deal as the media is making it out to be, and I understand why they are making it a big deal. It's a great headline. It's a sexy story. You can sensationalize it and all that. So I understand that. But it's not like Russ is definitely out of the closing unit for the rest of the season. At every level of sports, in every sport, you play the guys that help you win the game. All right, and if one of your top players is having a bad night and just doesn't have it that night, there's nothing wrong, as Frank Vogel and Westbrook said, with sitting him out. There's nothing wrong with that. So I got to start with that. But that said, it still is the bigger story than LeBron having a triple-double. I expected LeBron to have a great game. Now, I might not have expected a 29-point triple-double, but I expected him to play terrifically because he's played terrifically just about every single time I've seen him this year. All right, so LeBron James having a fantastic game, to me, is not a big story. Unfortunately, maybe for him, because we should prop it up a little more. But the bigger story is definitely Westbrook not playing in overtime, because if Wilds, he doesn't have the right attitude, and so far he does, at least from what he said in the press conference. But if he gets despondent, if he gets angry, if he starts hearing, people in his ear saying, oh, Russ, you going to take that? I can't believe they benched you. If he puts himself ahead of the team, then it could become a problem. But if not, this shouldn't be something that can derail the Lakers season.
Okay, so here's why I think Russ was by far the bigger story. When Russ joined the Lakers, it started with media confusion. You know what? Don't think that quite works. And then it didn't work. And then we heard all sorts of excuses and rationale out of LA, Nick, on why it wasn't working. We heard, you know what? It's just a chemistry thing with new guys. Then we heard, you know what? He's pressing because he's in front of his hometown. He feels an anxiety about playing in LA. And then it's just is he being played? Is Vogel playing him right? Are these lineups right? And now we finally got to the crux of it, which is, you know what? We're better off with this guy not playing. To me, if you get benched in overtime, DNP coach's decision is not miles away. It's not an ocean away. If you say, you know what, we're better off with this guy sitting on the bench. Shannon broke it down very simple. Said this guy's making $44 million a year. He's a former MVP, and he hurts the team. In overtime, you can't play him. So, Nick, this is the other low point. When Mike Breen had this quote when Russ took a baseline jump shot. Can we play that, Pep, please?
Trying to contain Malik Monk. Westbrook thought about it. Crowd kind of telling him no, and he missed it.
So, Nick, I think that's a big moment. When Laker Nation has turned on you and you have an open jumper and the crowd is actively telling you not to shoot, to me, we've reached the low point of Russ's tenure with LA. And I guess optimistically there's nowhere to go but up, but I think it's by far the bigger story.
Yeah, and I think you're both out of your mind. And here's why. I'm going to try to give a good reference point. Happened, it was about 27 years ago. Do we all remember it was late August 1995, Baltimore Orioles? They're in a slump. Big game against a team they're fighting for to maybe sneak into the playoffs. I think it was the Oakland A's. Brady Anderson. He went 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts in that game. Continuing a slump he was in. It was brutal. I wonder how much people were talking about it. Probably not much. Because a week later, Cal Ripken Jr. broke Lou Gehrig's record. And that was the story. Well, sometime this week, LeBron is going to score more points in an NBA uniform than any player ever. Now, he's going to have to wait another few months for Kareem's all-time scoring record, but he's about 55 points away from playoffs, regular season points. Who scored the most points in basketball history? Oh, that guy, who in year 19 might still be the best player in the league, who is going to win the scoring title, who is averaging the 5th most minutes of anyone in basketball, who is one of our pantheon athletes of all time, defying all odds. The most optimistic LeBron James supporters did not think in year 19 he was going to be scoring at the highest volume he scored at in a decade. Did not think that he would still be able to control games, hand on the joystick the way he is. And the fact that not only is it getting lost in the minutiae of Russell Westbrook's just abysmal shooting, but he is being tarred that this is being the season. It's like, yeah, LeBron's been great, but we all know Russ is on the team because of LeBron. It's so ludicrous. And did LeBron want Russ, Wildes? Absolutely. But yes. Let me ask Wildes a question. Because I know you're like, oh my God, remember he told everyone to keep the same energy. Yes, he was supportive. He was supportive of his teammates. Yes. Wildes, you've worked with incredibly talented people. I don't know if people know this. You helped create one of Colin's TV shows. Like, that's your thing at a previous network. Colin, I think it's probably fair to say, kind of the LeBron James of sports broadcasting. Colin ever have just a ridiculous idea that you knew wouldn't work? and it was your idea as the adult in the room to be like, Colin, it's a great idea. We'll work on that, and then shelve it, never to do it again, because it's like, okay, this is my job. The Lakers, if Rob Pelinka thought Russ was going to be a disaster, then don't trade for him. Like, has Russ been a disaster? Yes. But we're watching a guy on a nightly basis remind the world, or prove to the world in some cases, why he might literally be the best athlete ever to live. Might be the best athlete ever to live. And it's like, well, they won, and LeBron was the reason, but Russ was bad. That's the bigger story. That's missing the forest for the trees on what we're witnessing.
So we were talking all last week, Nick, about Brady and LeBron and who better defines this century. If Brady and the Bucks were under 500, do you think we'd be like, you know what? Oh, Tom Brady did it. Oh, he's passed for the most yards. Oh, look at all the touchdowns Tom Brady has.
Do you think they're going to finish under 500?
Like, man. In fact, you did nail him for bringing AB onto the Bucks and how disruptive he was.
Well, that's
you said that Brady had to wear that. It's not. I mean, it's different. I know, but it's
it's different.
Universe.
It's different because I wasn't. First of all, it was AB, the character that AB is. But with that said, you're focused on this under 500. I don't think they're going to finish the year under 500. I don't think anyone does. But Broussard, to use the Brady analogy, they were right around 500 his first year in Tampa. They're 7-5, 7-5 up until the bye. I just think it is amazing to me that we are. This is the question I would ask to Brew then. In 15 years, what do you think people? Let's assume the Lakers don't win the title. If they win the title, obviously, then it all changes. Assume they don't. In 15 years, what do you think the bigger story is going to be? That a guy had the greatest season ever by a mile of anyone his age or his year in the league, or that Russell Westbrook was bad? What's the bigger story once we have the perspective of history? Tell me.
Well, you're talking about a season. We were talking about one game. And you brought up what LeBron's about to do, right? When you include playoffs, scoring, he'll score more points than any other player in NBA history. Well, when that game comes, probably 2 games from now, that'll be the bigger story. Hopefully they celebrate it like they did Steph when he, surpassed the 3-point, total. Hopefully they do that, and that will be the big story. But Saturday night, that wasn't the bigger story. It was the Knicks, Nick. It was the Knicks, all right? The Knicks took them to overtime on the road. All right, the Knicks are horrible. And as Wild said, the Lakers haven't been playing very well. And so I agree, we don't want to lose sight of what LeBron is doing because it's tremendous. But when he hits these milestones, then we should celebrate them. But in real time right now, them not playing Russell Westbrook, one of the top 75 players of all time, who is still somewhat in his prime, is a bigger story than LeBron having a night that he's had, 20 times this season? I mean, he's done it virtually every time.
The fact that he keeps doing it, it's like we're muted to the impressiveness of it because he's been doing it almost every night.
It's a great season.
That's my point.
It's a great season, but we're talking about one game.
Fair. All right, time for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. And we're talking James Harden, who has reportedly been unhappy with his time in Brooklyn. The Athletic reported the Sixers were working on a Harden for Ben Simmons swap, but Steve Nash said Harden isn't going anywhere. A new report from ESPN just this morning after Harden missed the last 2 games with hamstring tightness had this: Brooklyn is trusting the injury is a legitimate hindrance to Harden playing now. An MRI Saturday confirmed there was tightness. The way they're trusting his word that he wants to remain with the franchise, sources said. Even so, saying he's committed isn't nearly as convincing as showing it. And that's something Harden has barely done lately. At times this year, Harden has played dispassionate and disappointing basketball, perhaps injury-related in some instances, perhaps pouty in others. Well, meanwhile, the Nets lost their 7th and 8th straight over the weekend. This is a team sitting in first place on Christmas. They're now in 7th place. So, Broussard, should the Nets trade Harden before Thursday's deadline?
No, Jenna. I mean, the Nets are right. The story about Woj said that they're not even thinking about it, that they wouldn't even entertain it when Daryl Morey brought it up, and that's as it should be. For as bad as things look right now, low morale, chemistry isn't there on the court, poor execution, the defense has been struggling, injuries. For all of that, the Nets' best chance to win a championship, I'm not saying they definitely will, but their best chance to do it is keeping James Harden. Trade him for Ben Simmons? What in the world am I getting with Ben Simmons? I have no idea. First of all, is he even going to be ready to play mentally? Does he want to play? All right, is he going to take a few jumpers? Is he even going to take layups? How's he going to fit in with my team? And when we play at home and Kyrie Irving can't play, now I've got one legitimate scorer, and that's Kevin Durant. At least when Harden's there and Kyrie's not playing, I've got two 20-point scores. So this is ridiculous. And here's the final thing, Nick. They can get Ben Simmons in the summer. James Harden can't just walk away in free agency unless he wants to go to Orlando or Detroit or San Antonio or Oklahoma City. He needs the Nets in a sign and trade so I can rob Philly in the summer. Give me Ben Simmons. Give me Tyrese Maxey. Give me Seth Curry if you want James Harden that bad.
That's not happening.
So I'm just saying that no need to panic right now. No need to panic.
I'm telling you right now, Simmons, Maxey, and Curry is not happening.
Just throwing out names.
That is
it wouldn't even work financially.
And it would be Simmons plus somebody for Harden. But there's a few points here. One is the idea that this trade will definitely be available for Brooklyn over the summer, I disagree with. Because not shockingly, the best GM in professional sports, Daryl Morey, has played a terrible hand perfectly. Played it perfectly. Because all of a sudden, when folks were like, no, you've got to take the package from the Raptors built around Pascal Siakam. You've got to take the package from the Kings built around Tyrese Halliburton. Daryl's like, no, I don't. And now, anyone confident Dame's going to be a Blazer next year? I'm not. Anyone confident that Bradley Beal's going to be a Wizard next year? I'm not. Anyone confident that Harden's going to be a Net in 5 days? Maybe not. Certainly not in 5 months. Daryl's got the best player available for any of those trades. So if the Nets don't do it now, they might never be able to do it. I actually think Wilds, Ben Simmons, would make them a better team right now than what you are currently getting from James Harden. The defense at the levels of his early days in Houston, offense less efficient than he's been in a decade, an interest level of his final days in Houston, and oh yeah, by the way, a guy who once upon a time, Wilds, was the most durable player in the league, now had a hamstring injury last year that cost him the end of his season, and now has a hamstring injury. Or he doesn't, and he's just faking it. Like, either way, it's either, he's an injury risk, or he's just dogging it to get out of town. Both doors you walk through are awful. So I think they should trade him. I think it's their only hope of giving us their season a jolt. And Wilds, I think it's inarguable at this point that the trade for him was a grievous error on the level of KG and Pierce for all the picks.
All right, so
they
I want to focus in on. No, I'm dig back in on your trade. So Simmons goes to Brooklyn, and now we've got Kyrie playing half the games. We've got Simmons, who we don't know. I mean, we root for the guy, and we have been a sympathetic show on getting Simmons back on the court, but we don't know what we're going to get with him. And Broussard mentioned what happens when Brooklyn matches up against Philadelphia. Right. I think that's going to be a rough road to plow for Ben Simmons if he's scared to get into the practice facility. Now you're going to play in a playoff game back in Philadelphia. That just sounds like a recipe for disaster. And then to Harden's point, Nick, how much of this response, like I know we talked about, Kyrie came back and maybe it has hurt Harden's feelings. Well, at this point, Harden hasn't been able to make it work with Russell Westbrook, with Chris Paul, with John Wall, and with Kyrie Irving. and KD to some extent. Now all of a sudden, Joel Embiid is going to be the magic elixir. Embiid and Harden, that's going to work perfectly. Doesn't James Harden bear some responsibility in your mind,
of course,
Nick, to get out there and just play basketball? Just play your hardest. It's not that
he bears
much to
massive
ask. Just play your
responsibility
all the time.
No, I'm not saying Harden's blameless at all. Harden is a focal point of the blame here. The only person who's blameless is KD. KD's only mistake was deciding that he wanted to pair up with Kyrie. Like, that's because they're buddies, as opposed to looking at Kyrie's resume of leaving franchises in disarray in his wake. KD's the only one who's, to me, blameless in this. But I want to go back to what I said a moment ago, Broussard. The Nets gave up more for Harden than the Lakers gave up for Anthony Davis. The Nets gave up Karis LeVert, who's now on a good team again, just got traded to the Cavs. Jared Allen, who's a borderline all-star. They do not have their own pick until 2028. And as an added bonus, because you traded for Harden, you had to let Dinwiddie walk for essentially nothing. You don't think if they had to do it all over again, they would rather have Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, and all their picks instead of what they've gotten from James Harden? You don't think they would undo that if they could?
You don't know how that's fitting in. At the time, they had to make the move, okay? In hindsight, if it doesn't work out, you can look back and say they shouldn't have made it. But at the time, you had to do it. You don't know that Dinwiddie would have been happy coming off the bench in a reduced role behind Kyrie Irving. So, no, I think they made the right move. And Harden, Nick, and you used to be a huge fan. You used to think he was the best player never to win a championship. He's not that anymore, but he's still an all-time elite player. A lot of these players have yes men around them that don't tell them what they need to hear. Somebody needs to tell James Harden, look, your legacy, he's a top 75, he's a Hall of Famer, all that, we know it. But your legacy, Harden, is, I won't say on the line, but people are certainly looking at you differently now. Nick's not the only one. And you mentioned it, Wiles. You couldn't play with Chris Paul. You couldn't play with Westbrook. All these different, Dwight Howard you had issues with. You've got Kevin Durant. But now go in there and play, even if you're bothered by Kyrie being there half the time. That's no excuse for you not to play well. Even if you won out of Brooklyn this summer, go ahead and try to win this championship now, get the monkey off your back, and then you can go wherever the heck you want to. So, Nick, no matter how you slice it, it doesn't make any sense to me to trade James Harden within the next few days for Ben Simmons. Makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, all right. I think Simmons would actually fit really well with the Nets. That you would have no bigs out there. The floor would be spread. When we've seen Simmons at his best, even in the postseason, was games Embiid missed and Simmons can get to the basket. I think the Nets with the shooting, with KD out there, he can play under the basket. I think it would work. But on the Harden point, Wilds, I think Harden knows his legacy is on the line, which is why he's trying to get to a better team. I think he looks at it and says, this ship be sinking, boys, and I'm not going down with it. Not my problem. KD, you signed the extension. I did not. I can go play with a guy in Joel Embiid who this year has been better than Durant and amazingly healthier than Durant.
Okay.
A team that is better coached than the Nets and has a better supporting cast.
And then what happens if the Sixers don't win? So he's cycled through another team that he doesn't win a championship. Well, what if they don't?
But it wouldn't
more
be
likely than they don't than they do. They're 13-3 when they all play in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is still favored to win the championship. So the fact that he wants to jump ship to a Sixers team that would be in flux and you have to develop all this chemistry with Joel Embiid, I don't know. I don't think that would work. I think that would hurt his legacy, Jenna.
I think both teams would be better, Brew. I think both teams would be better if this trade happened. I think the Nets would have a chance, and I think the Sixers
Simmons
obviously would be better because they're getting nothing from Simmons.
Philly would be better.
Simmons Ben's going to play. If Ben gets traded, he's going to play. And he's going to be a great defender, and he's going to get to the basket.
Where's his head at? Do we know?
He's going to play.
We don't know.
I think it's hard to know for sure. All right, that's going to do it for us.
I know for sure he's going to play.
Conversation continues right now on Undisputed.
I know that for sure.
Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Broke some news there.